Well, it looks like it's that time of the year again, when everyone recaps the year, so I thought I would join in and recap my favourite games that I've played this year. Not all of these games are games I've reviewed yet, but I still wanted to shed some light on them or bring them to your attention. So let's not waste any more time and kick things off with number 10, Undead Horde. This is a pretty casual ARPG style game where you roam a bunch of smaller maps, destroying everything and everyone with your undead horde that you grow larger through each encounter with the living. You can also collect loot and upgrade your equipment from both the ruins and chests that you find in each location. Undead Horde's a premium game that costs about $7 and £6. There's not much of a story to talk about here in Undead Horde, as the story is there if you look for it, but it's not the focus of the game. And visually, the game has a low poly art style that holds up really well and will probably continue to look great in the next couple of years. Performance wise, I felt the performance was fine. Statistically speaking, my Pixel 6 Pro ran the game at around 40 to 60 FPS from prolonged play, but it was playable. I had no issues. The gameplay of Undead Horde has you roaming the different maps, whacking enemies with your weapon of choice, or using spells to either buff your units or to directly attack the enemy. You can also directly command your units by sending them forward or calling them back to you. And that's it. That's what I meant by the game being casual. There's not a whole lot of engagement to be found here. You get gold that can upgrade your base, but these upgrades are lost once you've finished a whole run. But the actual gameplay of roaming from map to map, killing enemies and adding them to your Undead Horde is such an enjoyable gameplay loop. I really enjoyed having just a big bunch of units on screen at once. And it's for these reasons as well that I'm looking forward to Undead Horde 2. That's apparently coming out in Android as well, and I've played the early access version, and it is just Undead Horde, but significantly better. So while yes, I do recommend Undead Horde, if you're not itching for something like this, I would recommend for you to wait for Undead Horde 2. Following that, at number 9, we have Majesty the Fantasy Kingdom Sim. Majesty the Fantasy Kingdom Sim is the first game I reviewed on this channel and has a special place in my heart. I really enjoyed the Android port. The monetization of this game is a bit tricky to navigate. The free versions will plague you to no end to spend money on mechanics that you're just not going to get much value out of, like resurrecting your heroes or adding more gold to your treasury. These are things that only apply to that single map that you're on, and for that single save. But the positive side of the free versions is that it is free, so you get to experience the full gameplay, albeit with the monetizations, so you can get to feel whether or not you actually want to invest in the full version of the game, which currently sits at around $5 or £4.39. There's not much of a story really to roll with in Majesty, and the visuals are old 2D as it's a very old Android game. But the gameplay is why you come to this game. The gameplay of building a wee kingdom and then watching your heroes roam around the map as they do their own thing, that's great. I love it. And I found it really satisfying trying to figure out what kind of combo I was going to build for this kingdom. Like, am I going to build more Warriors of Discord? Am I going to focus on dwarves, elves, that sort of thing? Really, my only gripes with the gameplay was I wish there was more. The variety just isn't where I wanted it to be. It's not on par with the PC. But as a portable experience from an old game, as it's trying to adapt a PC version, I think it did a really good job. And I would highly recommend you checking out Majesty at any point. Just make sure that you're going with the Northern Expansion version, as I personally think that's the better of the two. Continuing on, we have Civilization 6 at number 8, with a slight additional nod to Unciv. If you don't know what the Civilization games are like, they're 4X strategy games where you start in a singular city of a selected nation with a selected leader, which grant their own unique buffs. Then you branch out, build different cities to expand your kingdom. For a more in-depth look on the Civilization games, I would recommend the YouTuber Potato McWhiskey. His videos are fantastically in-depth. Honestly, Civ 6 on Android was a big surprise to me. I didn't expect it to be the full game, but yet here it is. The port is feature complete with an asterisk, which we'll get to later. The free version of the game allows you to play your first 60 turns in a game for free. After that, you have to pay for it, which for me at the time I bought it cost me about £4.50, which might be about $5 or $6. Then on top of that, you're going to pay a hefty fine if you want the expansions. At the time that I bought the Gathering Storm expansion, which was the latest one available on Android, that cost me £17.50. But looking at the store right now, I am blown away by the cost that they're charging for the expansion. Looking at Gathering Storm, which came out in 2018, is the second expansion for the game. It's currently priced at £39, which converting that over is roughly $38. And then the Rise and Fall expansion, which was the first expansion for Civilization 6, sits at £30, which when that's converted over is roughly $37. These are incredible prices for expansion packs. Yes, this is a full-fledged game, but the mobile market is just not prepared for these kinds of prices, especially since Civ 6 came out quite a while ago at this point. To make matters worse, Aspire have dropped support for Civ 6. The game has not received any of its updates, and is now lacking content that the PC version has. It even lacks any sort of form of online multiplayer, like an online multiplayer server browser. So even if you wanted to play with people on Android from a different country or from a different location, you can. You'd have to share a code with them via the Play with the Cloud, which, at least on my Pixel 6 Pro, the game is very buggy. Sometimes whenever you boot it up, you will not be able to log into your 2K account, so playing via the cloud will just not function. You will also lose access to your cloud saves in that case. In order to correct this, you have to restart the game over and over, which is a headache, and it's a shame that they've never fixed this. From my perspective, this is a single player only game. But if you can get past all of that, Civilization 6 on Android is fantastic. It is the full game. So if you end up getting the expansions or you're just happy with the base game content, you do have the full-fledged Civilization experience on your phone in your pocket. The UI is a little bit clunky and performance isn't fantastic, but again, this is Civilization 6 on your phone. If you're not happy with all of the issues that I've brought up here, then I would recommend instead that you check out Unciv. Unciv seems to be an open source version of Civilization 5, and it has plenty of community support with a ton of mods, and it works flawlessly. You can even install it on your PC and you'll be able to have crossplay with anybody else who's using Unciv. Either of these games will get your Civilization kick if you're looking at on the go. And at my favourite number, we have Pirate Outlaws at number 7. Pirate Outlaws is a deck building card game where you select a hero and travel along a couple of different locations on your boat. You battle pirates and deal with encounters and then face off against a larger boss at the end of the run. The hero that you select will determine the playstyle for your run, and each hero must be unlocked individually. There is a story here, but it's contained within the quests that you select to go on whenever you go on a run, and it's usually only 1 or 2 sentences, so it's not much to write about. The game is available on PC and on mobile, and it's incredibly well made. There's so much content to play in this game. I don't think I'll ever have to install this game off my phone due to the sheer amount of content within it, between the different heroes, the different playstyles and the different cards. Even on the monetization front, the game is great, costing only $1 or 89p. For less than the cost of a can of Coke, you get so much content. So I really recommend at least trying out Pirate Outlaws. There's a good amount of content there that you'll definitely get your money's worth, and it's a great game to play while you're just sitting waiting for something, since each run only takes a couple of minutes. Sneaking its way in at number 6 is Crying Suns. Crying Suns is a tactical roguelike game in a similar vein to FTL. Here, you will travel throughout the different sectors in space and have a variety of different encounters, from engaging with space pirates to sending your commandos down to a planet in order to get some goodies. And whenever you do end up fighting with somebody, the game turns into somewhat of an RTS with pause, where you will command your spaceships to destroy the enemy's battleship. You will also have to watch out for different things like map effects, and the different spaceships all have their different abilities, and there's a rock, paper, scissors kind of system running behind each ship. I really enjoyed the combat system in this game. Every fight was really fun. Getting to deploy my different ships out onto the battlefield, having them scrap with their ships, watching the AI to see what kind of tactics they were employing. I really enjoyed it. My favourite encounter I had was that I deployed my ships against an AI, and the AI and me clashed in the middle of the map over and over again, neither of us gaining ground. Then the AI suddenly switched up what ships it was using and deployed long-range cruisers at the back to defend their battleship with fighters at the front, and I sent my ships over and over again. I could not break their defences. Eventually I switched up my own tactics, switching from a head-on assault to using a juggernaut and a defensive team around the juggernaut as it made its way to the battleship, and that was it. The battle was over. It was great. I loved it. I loved that the AI seemingly adapted to the situation. That was a one-off, but AI in this game is really fun to fight. The combat system in this game is enjoyable enough that I actually wish it had a PvP mode. I think a game like this with PvP would be great. It'd be so fun to spectate, especially since the battles are so short. If you don't use the pause feature, the battles can only last a couple of minutes, but if you really want to plan out your attacks and make sure everything goes smoothly, you can pause as you move along and you can command every single tiny detail of the fight. Make sure that everything goes as smoothly for your forces as it can. The game's available both on PC and on mobile, and it runs flawlessly in both. Crying Suns is a premium game, costing around $9 or £8, but it is well worth that price. You are getting a full-fledged, proper game here, and the story is the part that sucked me in the most. I don't want to spoil too much about the story. As I said, it's the best part of it for me, but it is set in a dystopian sci-fi universe, and you get to discover more of the universe as you go along and more of the plot, with your character discovering the universe being part of the story. When the introduction cutscene played for me, I was hooked immediately. I knew I was going to be finishing it, and damn did that story hook me in. I ended up sinking about 20 hours into this thing, and that's only over like a week. and the game is still getting updates. Not too long ago, the developers released the Advanced Tactics update, which brought a whole bunch of additional ships and some additional events, as well as the ability to upgrade your ships. And there is an additional update coming out not too long from now, though I do believe it's coming to PC first. So if you like that sort of neon sci-fi aesthetic and the kind of music that you'll be hearing in the background here, I really recommend you check out Crying Suns. Since we're at the halfway point of the list, and I didn't think it was fair to include these in the list itself, it's the perfect time to do my honourable mentions to Android emulators. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list, but these are the emulators that I personally love to use to play some of the old titles. First off, we've got Game Boy Advanced and Game Boy Color emulator Pizza Boy. Pizza Boy is a fantastic emulator for Game Boy. It's pretty accurate and it runs really smoothly on my tested devices, which is a Pixel 6 Pro and a Sony X8 Premium. This app's regularly updated too, so any reported bugs should be fixed pretty quickly, and performance is always improving. It comes in both a free and a paid version. While the free version worked perfectly and will let you play all your favourite Game Boy games with no issues, the paid version grants you access to cheats, Google Drive save syncing, auto saves, multiplayer, which I haven't tested out myself, but it would be great to get you and your friends together to play a wee Game Boy game together on the mobile, as well as a few other interesting features. If you're looking to play Game Boy games, I would highly recommend Pizza Boy. If you're looking to play old PS1 classics like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot while you're out on the go, then DuckStation is one of the best PS1 emulators that you can rock on Android. It is a huge set of features and different settings that you can work with, ranging from different improvements that you can enable and disable, like widescreen support for games that didn't originally have it, to even the integrated retro achievements, allowing you to get achievements and earn points in games before achievements were even a thing. The best part is that DuckStation is completely free to use and will run pretty fantastically in most modern devices. The only thing I should note is that you're going to need a BIOS file. I can't tell you where to get it, but a quick Google search should solve that. PPSSPP is a fantastic PSP emulator that I have been using for years now. This will let you play pretty much any of your old PSP games flawlessly. PPSSPP has every feature you could want from an emulator, from texture upscaling to save states, and it even supports multiplayer, making it one of the best ways to play PSP games on your phone or your PC. The app is continuously getting updates, and the developers are always working to improve the performance. There are two versions of this in the Play Store, a free and a paid version, but they have exactly the same features. The paid version is just there to show your support for the developers. Aether SX2 is by far the best PS2 emulator for Android. This will let you play a good number of PS2 games with some pretty decent performance. This emulator, however, will require a very beefy modern phone in order for you to run most games at a playable performance. While I was editing this video, the developer for Aether SX2 has announced that he is ending development on the project due to receiving constant harassment and death threats, and people demanding things off the project. This is devastating news for PS2 emulation on Android. But with that in mind, Aether SX2 in its current state and from its nightly downloads that you can download from their website will still allow you to play most of your favourite PS2 games on a beefy phone. I'm still keeping hope alive that someday in the future we will have perfect PS2 emulation on mobile. Aether SX2 is free, but it requires you to supply your own PS2 BIOS file, which you can find with a quick Google search. If there are any GameCube or Wii games that you're just dying to play while you're on the go, then the Dolphin emulator is the way to go. The developers behind this app have worked really hard for years to get the emulation as accurate as performant as it is, and it is so damn good. Dolphin's the perfect setup for PC and Android if you're wanting to play GameCube or Wii games. I even got myself a Wii sensor for my PC in order to completely replace my Wii. Dolphin on the Android App Store is updated pretty regularly, with the last update only being a few months ago at the time of recording. Citra, the 3DS emulator, is hands down the best 3DS emulator available for Android. This will let you play most 3DS games on more modern phones pretty fantastically. Games run okay on my Sony X8 Premium, but they run fantastically on my Pixel 6 Pro. I even managed a couple of full game playthroughs and had very few issues. If you use Citra on PC, you can also transfer your saves across. This makes it so you can play 3DS games regardless of where you are. If you want to get a higher quality visuals, play the game on PC, and then if you need to get up and go, transfer your save over to Android and continue playing. Now, there is a premium upgrade for Citra that grants you access to changing the app's theme, either light or dark, and enabling filters, but I wouldn't recommend it, since this seems to require the Google Play Store version, and I don't recommend using that, since the last time it was updated at the time of recording was May 2021. That is quite a while ago. Instead, I recommend going straight to the Citra website and installing the latest nightly build. This way you'll get the most bug fixes and the best performance for your phone. Our final emulator is a real treat. Skyline Emulator is a brand new emulator that's still roaring hot out of the oven. This is the most unbelievable emulator that I have ever encountered. We are actually at the point where we can run and play some Switch games on mobile. This is mind-blowing to me. Don't expect all of your games to run on your phone. Since this is still under heavy development, you're going to need a really beefy device. The performance that you're seeing on screen is from my Pixel 6 Pro, as it attempts to run some of the more popular games on Switch. But for me, it's the potential that outlives anything else. Someday we're going to have close to perfect performance on Switch games on our mobiles, and that's insane. As you can tell, I'm super excited to continue hearing updates on Skyline. I even subscribed to their highest level on Patreon, just so I could support the developers as much as I could. Skyline is not available on the Google Play Store, so you'll have to download it either from their Discord or directly from the GitHub. And if you want the most up-to-date version of the emulator, then you'll have to subscribe to their Edge tier on Patreon. I've only given a surface level touch here to the emulators available on Android, but if you want to keep up to date with all emulation news and any updates that these apps might get, I would highly recommend checking out Mr. Sujano here on YouTube, as his content is amazing and his news updates are top notch. Rightio, return back to our list. We have at number 5, Bot World Adventures. Bot World Adventures is essentially Pokemon with an auto-battler. The core mechanics of this game are very similar to the Pokemon series. You start off as an aspiring bot battler and get your first bot from your folks. Then you go out and battle wild bots. It's the combat that makes Bot World Adventure different to the Pokemon series. While in Pokemon you would have a turn-based combat system, here in Bot World you have an auto-battler, where when combat begins an arena will spawn and you will place down your bots. The AI will place their bots. This will go back and forth until both teams have placed their bots. Then the AI of the bots will take over and they will fight depending on their types. So Defender Bot will likely be a melee bot and it will focus on melee attacking any enemies that are currently attacking your team, while your ranged units might run away in order to make sure that their health stays high and they can fire at the enemy from a distance. You also gain energy over time. This energy can be used in order to support your team or to directly attack the enemy team. So you can either apply an invincibility buff or you can fire a bomb that deals damage to the enemy. Given that the game is free on Android, you would expect the monetization to be pretty dreadful. It doesn't appear to be the case though. While yes, the store exists and it will offer you bots to buy and offer you resources to collect, the bots that you use in your fights are earnable in-game and doesn't seem to be too much of an issue to earn them. The RNG doesn't seem to be favouring the monetization shop too much. I've played the game a fair amount, but it's nowhere near enough to be able to pass a proper judgment on how much the higher level play will require monetization. But from where I've currently played up to, I've played completely free and I've had no issues. And the game even seems to be less grindy than the mainline Pokemon games. Bot World does have multiplayer, but it's not really multiplayer. You appear to face off against a set team of another player's bot, not an actual player themselves. So it is almost like PvE again. I'm personally not a big fan of this type of PvP, especially when it's not disclosed whenever you go into the PvP modes. But here I can understand it somewhat. There's a lot of slowdown effect, which might impact the multiplayer. And it's a lot easier for you to make tactical decisions if you're not being impacted by lag or latency. All in all, I would recommend trying out Bot World Adventure. It's a pretty great take on the Pokemon style of game, and I intend on playing through this game until I've either got each bot or I've finished the mainline story. Coming in at a solid number 4 is Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap has been winning awards left, right and centre, and it's well deserved. Gameplay here is great. Marvel Snap is a card game where each player plays with a 12 card deck, and the game plays out across 6 turns. Your cards are played via energy that you get per turn, and you get more energy the later into the game you play. So by turn 6 you can play your big heavy hitters like the Hulk, while on turn 1 you're going to have to play with smaller characters like Ant-Man. There's a lot of strategy in this game, as the locations themselves also have impact, and the locations are randomly selected and are not revealed until at least turn 3 is when all the locations are revealed. So you could be placing cards on a location and ignoring another one, and that other location might have a benefit on it, such as whoever's winning this location will gain +3 to other locations. So the board itself you have to take into consideration, and there's a huge variety of cards. Marvel Snap seems to have taken up most of the Marvel characters, at least all of the mainstream characters are here, and most of them have great unique abilities, like Captain America, who will buff your other characters at that location, or Iron Man, who just doubles your strength. And visually, the game is snappy. I love the presentation here. Every card that plays feels like it's got impact, feels strong and punchy, and with each match being so short, the game is so addicting to play. You can play a round or two of Marvel Snap while sitting on the loo, and then straight back to whatever you were doing. Now, I was debating whether or not to put Marvel Snap this high on the list or to put it much lower, and that is because the monetization here is just mind-boggling. I don't understand it. Now, I haven't unlocked all the features, as my collection level is apparently too low to unlock stuff like the token weapon shop. But what I can see in the normal shop and the price of the battle pass is just mind-blowing. I don't understand. They were selling a 90s animated X-Men variant of Gambit and Rogue for £32, with the battle pass sitting at about £9. You get nothing for it. For that £32 you would get some in-game credits and 2 avatars for your profile picture. What? These are just insane. That's an insane cost for what you're getting. You're getting 2 playable digital cards. And then for the battle pass is really long. And on that length of the battle pass, there's only 2 big cards that are advertised on it. For about £9, you're getting 2 playable cards? Really? I don't understand how they can charge these things. I don't get why people are paying for this. Because yes, I have played mobile trading card games before. I got really into the Star Wars Force card game. But just like that, this will be shut down someday. And you will have thrown so much money away for nothing. For the gratification of winning a couple of more games? That just doesn't seem worth it. To me, the costs are way too high in the monetization system. I would never spend a penny on this game. However, without spending a penny, I'm really enjoying the game. That is why I did decide in the end to put it this high on the list. The gameplay mechanics make it well deserved to go here. Just be aware of what you're getting into. This game wants to slap you around the face with the cost of cards that might give you an advantage. And as others have brought up in other videos, they might balance those cards into oblivion. So you might spend £30 odd on a card that is useless in a month. Moving on to our number 3 that stands there with no nasty monetization is XCOM 2. XCOM 2 is without a doubt my favourite turn-based strategy game. It shouldn't take much of an introduction if you're around the gaming scene for long, but XCOM 2 picks up where the first game finished, only where the alien invasion was successful, and you must now lead your team of human rebels to overthrow the alien invaders and take Earth right back from their clutches. In order to do this, the gameplay consists of 2 major elements. You've got the turn-based side of the game, which is the main core, and you've got the base management. The main core of the game revolves around you sending a squad of up to 5 soldiers into a mission, and they must complete a specific objective. The soldiers in your squad all have unique abilities, and you can customize each one to your liking. This way you can personalize each soldier and develop a connection with them so that it will feel so much worse if they die permanently on a mission. XCOM 2 on Android has a slew of customizational options, and I love that. I love creating each individual soldier. Normally I create all my soldiers based on my friends or people I know, and then I create little stories based on their activities in the game. So for example, one of my friends, I set his character up to only use a sword and a shotgun, and his character just got so many kills with the sword. There was one match I had where he ran around and murdered all the aliens in a single turn due to some of the perks that he had. You also have to try and balance between bringing more experienced soldiers along with your rookies, as if you bring too many experienced soldiers, then your rookies won't gain XP, and if you bring too many rookies, they might get wiped out. But once you're in your mission, in XCOM 2 you begin stealth, so you have a couple of turns to walk around before the enemy know you're there. However, once combat is initiated, the game will turn into a turn-based tactical strategy game, where you and the AI will take turns to move your units around on a grid-based map, keeping in mind that each unit has their own set of action points that can be used per turn in order to move, attack, or use their special abilities. Most of the time when you move a unit, you will be moving it in order to take advantage of the terrain and provide your units cover, like positioning your soldier behind a bit of rubble in order to reduce the chance that you will be hit by the next attack. Or you can position your soldiers in such a way that you will anticipate the enemy's next move, as once you end your turn, the AI will take their turn, and you can activate an ability on most of your characters called Overwatch, which will allow your units to fire on enemy units that come into their line of sight during the enemy's turn. But you have to constantly keep in mind that the enemy has access to not only the abilities that your soldiers have, but more, as each different type of weapon will also grant each unit a very different ability. Like a rocket launcher will not only damage an area, but will also destroy the terrain that you're using as defense. Or certain enemies will have passive abilities that if they take damage, they might even start moving towards the unit that shot them. These are all tactical decisions you must keep in mind as you're making your moves. The other side of the game has the player building up their base, where you must manage your resources and the space available to you in order to make the most optimized ship, with each room you build providing different bonuses or providing access to different things that you didn't have before, like additional soldiers or a different type of soldier. Each of these you will come across as you play the campaign, and I don't want to spoil the different types that you can make, but I will spoil that the layout of your base is important, and the order of which and when you build things is also important, so you might want to watch a couple YouTube videos on that, though that shouldn't matter if you're playing on the easier easier difficulty. It's only on the harder difficulties that will really impact your game. Now, performance-wise, I thought the game was pretty heavy on my Pixel 6 Pro, but given how visually beautiful this game is, I'm very surprised that they managed to fit the entire game onto the phone in the first place. This just goes to show the power that mobile phones actually have these days. But running the game constantly at 60 FPS without an external cooling unit is something I wouldn't recommend. Your phone will heat up really fast while you're sitting there making decisions, and a game like this doesn't really need a high frame rate anyway. So keep to 30 FPS and you'll get some lovely visuals. One other thing I should note is that whenever my Pixel 6 Pro started to heat up while playing XCOM 2, the audio would start to crackle. Now you can somewhat hear that in the footage I've presented here. I'm not entirely sure what was causing it, and I couldn't find a solution online. So if your game starts to crackle and it doesn't go away, you might want to refund the game. I didn't mind the crackling personally, I just turned the audio off. I've played through the game before on PC when it came out originally, so I know the audio, but it is a letdown if this happens, especially if this is your first time playing the game. Hopefully one day the developers will release a patch that fixes this. XCOM 2 is a hefty enough investment on Android. It's going to set you back around £15 or $20. And on top of that, the storage required to store the game in your phone is quite a bit, sitting at about 8.2 gig, the highest of any games I've talked about today. So you will need to prepare yourself to be able to store it if you have a low amount of storage, and to purchase it, because the mobile market is not really geared towards these kind of large, expensive purchases. But you do get the XCOM 2 DLC included in your purchase. So if you're looking for a great turn-based tactical game, I can't recommend anything other than XCOM. But if you think this is too expensive, or you don't have the storage space to store it, then I would actually recommend the original, XCOM 1. It currently sits at around £4.50 or $5, and it is basically the same mechanics with a few downgrades. There's a couple of features that are missing, but XCOM 1 in itself is still an amazing turn-based tactical game, and it will scratch any itch you might have. While this next game is second on our list, it is the best card game I played all year, and that is Doncaster. Doncaster is a roguelike tactical card game where you select your hero from a list of different heroes, or you click random, and that will impact your different starting abilities. So if you select a rogue, you will start with the highest dexterity, with the attributes affecting the different energies that you can use to spend your cards. So you've got attributes like strength, dexterity, intelligence, and holy, with each one allowing for its own unique type of card to be played. So strength cards can only be played if you have enough strength energy. So picking a strength hero will allow you to have higher strength energy. The gist of each run is that you're given 3 random options, and they can be a variety of different buffs, events, or fighting an enemy. The events are pretty interesting. Sometimes you get stuff like finding a giant bowl of stew with skulls floating in it, and you have to decide, do you drink from it? When you do choose to fight an enemy, combat begins by you drawing 5 cards. Each card has its own unique effect, and you do need to think about the order in which you play them, as sometimes if you play cards out of order, you might end up losing the effect of that card completely. But on the other hand, damn is it satisfying whenever you pull off a combo. One of the instantly gratifying cards you can play is the Greatsword Basic Attack. This will deal 6 damage, but if you use a yellow energy to play the card, it will deal a critical hit of 12 damage at minimum. That's crazy high when you're in the early game. Sometimes that's enough to nearly kill an enemy. They might have like 2 or 3 HP left. Oof, that puts you in good footing. Now, Doncaster is a paid-for game, coming in at around £3.60 or $5, and the game does have additional in-game purchases. These grant you additional acts and more cards to play with. But unlike other games, these are proper DLC-sized expansions, and not just a couple of wee pieces here and there. And the game is continuously getting updates. I only started playing the game in around October, and the game has received 3 major content updates since then, with the latest content update adding over 120 cards to the game completely for free. But this is such good value for money. You get a lot of content in all of these purchases. Even if you just go with the base game, you will have plenty of content to keep you occupied for a while. I highly recommend Doncaster to anybody who's interested in this sort of thing. And the final game I'm talking about today is the absolute best game I played all year, and that is Wreckfest. Wreckfest is a demolition derby racing game, and I'm blown away that it is fully featured on Android. I can't believe that they managed to fit the entire experience onto Android without any gameplay sacrifices. Wreckfest features what you would expect from a racing game. It has different types of races, from last man standing to team deathmatch races, and banger races to elimination races, with a bunch of different tracks, and you can play those tracks either in forward or reverse. But where Wreckfest truly shines is in the destruction and the chaos that's within each race. So many parts of the environment are destructible, and the cars themselves just turn into putty when they crash into each other. It is fantastic. Sometimes at the end of a race, you mightn't even have a track to be able to pass through, because the cars will have all crashed into each other and broken down, at which point you're gonna have to start navigating and slowly moving your way through the field in order to not get smashed yourself, as the AI will crash into other cars to crash into you. The AI here is perfectly reckless. I love love it. There's also a crazy amount of different vehicles in the game, from buses and trucks to sofas and lawnmowers. It's absolutely hilarious to have a sofa race. Just a bunch of people tooting around in rideable sofas and flying through the air when they crash into something. It's craziness like that when all the vehicles are together is when Wreckfest truly shines. When you get a bunch of really fast cars racing against a bus and a sofa and everyone's smashing into each other and wrecking each other till there's only about 2 cars that can actually pass the finish line. That is why I love Wreckfest. In terms of performance, at least on my Pixel 6 Pro, the game sits at a pretty solid 60 FPS throughout a race or two. But after a while, the heat will start to build up in your phone, and without something like an external cooler, your phone will begin to heat up very fast and your performance will drop. So I would recommend either turning your settings down to the lowest, which isn't ideal. Playing at 60 FPS with an external cooler and no case is probably the best option if you want the best performance and visuals, or dropping down to 30 FPS, and I would actually recommend an external cooler there as well. The phone will heat up. This is a very pretty game and it will put a lot of pressure on your phone. Otherwise, the optimizations they've done here to place this game on Android are amazing. The fact that everything looks pretty on par with what it is on PC is an achievement. And the controls that they've used here for mobile are great as well. While you can hook up your controller and play the game like you would normally, you can also use the on-screen controls. I originally went into using the touchscreen controls just to see how they were and was planning on switching back to controller. But after a couple of races, I actually didn't mind the controls. I didn't have any issues controlling the cars, and there were no moments where I felt like I was being let down by the controls that were on the screen. So if you don't have a controller to hook up to the phone, don't worry, Wreckfest's on-screen controls are more than sufficient, and that was a surprise for me, as I find a lot of on-screen controls to be very clunky, and I tend to just immediately go to controller. Now, Wreckfest is a premium game, coming in at around £8.50 or $10, but you're getting a lot of game for that, and it's significantly cheaper than what you would be paying on PC for the exact same content. If I was to have any gripe with the price point, it would be that the DLC content, which is just additional cars and tracks, is about the same price as the base game, which, yes, when it's all purchased together, it does equal the same price as what you would pay for a new game on Steam. But that is very expensive for a mobile market. Perhaps in the future, they will do sales, but at the moment, spending $10 for a game, and then $10 each for each of its DLCs, it's a bit high on mobile. But the content you're getting for the price here is fantastic. You're getting a lot of racing game. It's definitely one of the best racing games that I've played on mobile. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening, and if you have any thoughts on my top 10 and my honourable mention emulators, please let me know in my comments below, and I'll be sure to get back to you. If there's anything I missed and you think I should have brought up while talking about these games here, please let me know and I'll be sure to include that information on my next list. And why don't you leave your top 10 below? I'd love to hear what other people were thinking, as we all have different perspectives on what kind of mobile games we enjoy playing. So I hope you all have a great 2023, and if you'd like to see more of my content, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're feeling exceptionally generous, why don't you check out my Patreon? So thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you all in my next video.